Welcome to the Basscast podcast. I am RedX, aka Alex.
And I am Evan, aka WebEv.
So, we're going to basically talk about Snails. So, if you're not familiar with Snails right now, he is one of the big names in the bass community, and right now he's touring with his new stage. I think it's the Shell 2.0 stage. And if you're unfamiliar with what the stage looks like, so imagine if you're looking at the stage, there's like a see-through kind of drapey looking screen, and then behind that is him, and you can see through that front screen, and then behind Snails is a screen and all that is just for visuals and stuff like that. Okay, so kind of talking about Snails, last year for EDC was the first time that I have ever seen Snails, and also I'm pretty sure that was the first time you saw Snails, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, one of my two favorite shows at EDC of last year. EDC Orlando. Yeah,
Snails is a great go-to for like if you are ever near whenever he's touring, if you're ever near a venue wherever he's touring, you should definitely go and see him. So. I went to go see him this past Sunday, being the 4th. I went to go see him in Birmingham at a venue called Iron City. And I have to first talking about the venue. The venue was very, very good. I would say, just for reference for you, Evan, imagine House of Blues, but like 2/3 the size of House of Blues. Okay, so it's kind of like the same layout where, well, it's like there's a dance floor, and then there's like a little steps up to where like you can just like hang out, and there's tables and all that, and then they have
a balcony or something.
Yeah, and then like there's like a couple steps up to like from the dance floor to where like you can just hang out, and then they have a VIP area which is like a 3-sided thing above where the dance floor is basically.
Right.
And so in my opinion, I've only been to 2 venues in Birmingham, and this one has been the best one so far. So if you're ever like in the Birmingham and the Alabama area or whatever, and you're wanting to go to, and you see like someone touring that you really want to go see, and they're just so happen touring to go through Birmingham, and the venue that they're going to be at is going to be Iron City, I would say totally go for it, because that is a great venue. So,
real quick, so how many people can this venue hold? Like, just kind of a reference. Like, like how many people were there? Would you say, like maybe 800 to 1,000 area?
I would say maybe,
or maybe closer to 500.
I would say the max for like the area, the main general dancing area would probably be, around, maybe the max might be 750, 800. Maybe. Mm-hmm. That might be a little bit too much. I would say like the amount of people that were there when I went Sunday, I would say there was maybe around 500, maybe. That's just estimation though.
Okay.
But yeah, there was a lot of people there. I mean, also being in Alabama, there shouldn't be. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people would show up to a Snails concert, in Alabama, compared to like say in California or maybe in Florida or in New York. But yeah, there was a lot of people that showed up.
I think that's good though. Like,
yeah,
it's good that it's good that the dubstep artists are going to the lesser known towns. Well, I mean, Birmingham is technically the biggest city in Alabama, but it's still a lesser known city. I feel like I wouldn't expect most DJs to go to Birmingham. I wouldn't expect like Diplo or Tiesto to go to Birmingham.
Yeah, it just kind of seems a little wacky that like a big name like Diplo or Tiesto or whoever to go to Birmingham. Like you would probably see them go to like Nashville or something.
Or Atlanta. That's where most of the big names go to. Most of them go through Atlanta.
Through Atlanta is the main one, yeah.
At least in that southeastern part of the United States.
Right.
Excluding Florida, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They usually like if they're on a tour, they usually go, they're like they'll hit up, like Colorado, Arizona, California area, then make their way to, to Texas, and then maybe to New Orleans, and then usually they'll like make their way to Atlanta. And it's somewhat rare that they go through Birmingham and stop at Birmingham, I would say. They might go up more north and go through Memphis and Nashville instead of go through Birmingham.
Right. And like the way that I feel how it is, like if I ever see a person who on a good day, like whether it's like on a weekend or whatever, if I see a DJ that I really want to go see and they're touring in Birmingham, I will be on that. And so it just so happens that he was playing that Snails was playing on a Sunday this past Sunday, so I was like, yes, I'm going to that. So talking about the venue was great. Overall, best one so far that I've been to. I mean, yeah, I've only been to 2 down in Birmingham, but that's the best venue so far that
You mean best in Birmingham?
Yeah, best venue in Birmingham, yes.
What was the other one in Birmingham you went to again?
So the other one is called Zydeco. I saw Bear Grylls last year after EDC on a Tuesday night, and that was when he had his new stage. I forget what he called his stage last year. But unfortunately, the venue was actually too small to where he couldn't use his stage. So they just had, a little backdrop screen that he used for his visuals, which was okay. But I was kind of looking forward to seeing his actual stage, since that's what he was touring with. But unfortunately, he didn't. But to say all that, Iron City, the venue that I went to, would have been a great venue for him because it definitely would have the stage would have been big enough for his own stage that he made, and I think it would have been perfect. It would have been a perfect size for the openers that he was bringing on tour with. I think it was Company, Dirt Monkey, and Phase One. But I didn't see Dirt Monkey because I think he was his wife was having a baby at the time, so he had to go deal with that. When I went to go see Bear Grylls.
What? You mean he was carrying to his wife instead of showing up to the show?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, man.
I think
that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, no worries.
By the way, I think that show the tour was American Freak Show. Is that correct? It's either American Freak Show or The Void.
Is it American Freak Show or is it just the Freak Show?
I mean, I just looked it up. It's saying American Freak Show everywhere.
Okay.
Maybe it's just the Freak Show, and he called it American Freak Show for the American tour.
Right, and maybe are you saying the stage was called The Void?
I think it's a different one. Oh, maybe it was, actually. Maybe The Void was first, and then he just took The Void stage on the American Freak Show tour.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Anyway, so all that being said, he should have now, again, at that time, I didn't know if someone was already booked for Iron City that specific day that Bear Grylls was going to be playing at Zydeco. But I honestly, I think he should have played. If Bear Grylls had the opportunity, he should have done it at Iron City than he did at Zydeco, because Zydeco was just a smaller venue. And the first time that I saw Bear Grylls was at a bigger venue than what I saw him the second time. And it was kind of a little disappointing to like see a downgraded venue of such a big DJ, you know.
That's so funny though, because the first time that you saw Bear Grylls was also the first time that I saw him. And that was actually our first show together. That was the first ever dubstep show we both saw together. And that was probably one of the smallest venues I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Well, I can tell you that venue, in comparison to the one that I saw him at last year, it was way smaller.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems a little disappointing just to see, you know, like, I kind of got that feeling when I saw Snails this past Sunday, like, going from EDC and like seeing him play shows like at Rampage, at Red Rocks, and like at EDC, going from big stages like that, and then going to like a small town in Alabama called Birmingham and like playing at just a local, you know, downtown nightclub called Iron City, which doesn't seem like a very big venue compared to, you know, some of these festivals that he plays at. It just seems a little disappointing, but like what I'm trying to say is, all of that being said is, there were some upsides to this particular Snails show. So before we talk about when Snails, you know, when he went through his set, I do want to talk about the openers.
Yeah, who opened for him?
So the openers were, so I saw UBUR and Sudden Death for the first time.
Wait,
and then
who?
Sudden Death.
Who's Sudden Death? Don't you mean Sudden Death?
Yes. If you want to be grammatically correct in how he spells his name, sure, Sudden Death.
No. It's not about being grammatically correct. It's about the fact that sounds cooler than Sudden Death. Like, Sudden Death, that is just the coolest name ever.
Really?
Yeah, I can tell you agree with me. Thanks for agreeing with me.
Well, I mean, I want to say it correctly. Like, you know, instead of saying 1788L, you want to say it 1788L. You don't want to say it incorrectly. Yeah. You know?
No, that makes sense, though.
So does Sudden Death.
Sudden Death makes a ton of sense.
Okay, it makes sense in your head.
I just like saying Sudden Death.
Okay, you can say that for when you go see him, okay?
Fine.
Okay, so
UBUR was before, was first, right?
Right. So it went UBUR, then Sudden Death, and then Cookie Monsta, who I've seen before on the Excision tour last year, and then it went Snails. So talking about the first two, I want to talk about UBUR and Sudden Death. So I kind of feel a little bad for them because they don't have it, meaning they don't have the energy of the crowd like Snails does, or possibly like Cookie Monsta did. So, and I think that it is due to trying not to overhype Snails. So, and this is what I mean by that.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, real quick, did you get there when UBUR was playing, or did you get there before UBUR?
Yeah, I think he was playing for like so. The venue opened at about 7:00, and he started going on around 7:20, I think. And so when I got there, it was like 20. He was already like 20 minutes into his set or something like that. So I mean, obviously you can still hear like the music coming from outside. You can hear the beats booming a little bit. So going back to like why I feel a little sympathy for them is that they have a much harder time getting energy from the crowd than, say, Cookie Monsta or Snails. And this is the reason why. It's because they don't turn up the bass or the music until, it goes farther into the night. Like, meaning, like, the farther into the set list or whatever, then they'll start turning up the music and turning up the bass and all that. So, all that being said, UBUR was great. Sudden Death was great, but I think they didn't. I don't think they had. I think they like DJing and all that stuff, but it seems to me that it's harder for them to get the crowd going since they're openers, because the music for us, the crowd, it's not as loud as it would be for when Snails went on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed that they don't have the volume up as loud for the openers as they do with the main show. Like, right. I know for a fact they turn it up. Because the last show that I was at, I actually went and I was talking to one of the guys in the sound booth, and like I watched him turn up the sound before the final act. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, I was like, you turned it up? And he was like, yep. He was like, yep, it's the main show. So I know for a fact that they turned it up for for this show. I'm sure that they had it. I would almost guess that they do it like they turn up the volume per each show, like per each set. Like SVDDEN Death was probably a little bit louder than UBUR, and then Cookie Monsta was probably a little bit louder than SVDDEN Death, and obviously Snails was probably the loudest.
Yeah. So about that particular topic, what I noticed was about like 20 minutes before their set was over with, they did turn it up like a little bit of a notch or whatever. So I couldn't really tell a significant difference between UBUR and Sudden Death, but I could definitely tell a significant difference between Sudden Death and Cookie Monsta. So I guess the like turning it up a little bit from UBUR to Sudden Death was there. I just didn't really notice it. But when Cookie Monsta went on, then like he started playing like some really bassy songs, and I could tell that they did turn it up for him a little bit.
Right.
And so, that's why I kind of feel a little sympathetic for the openers, because I think they have a much harder time getting crowd control than the headliner, because when they DJ, the music is turned down a little bit compared to the opener, which I can understand. That you don't want to overhype the headliner, whoever's being the main, like whoever's the headliner who's touring, and I know they're like the support for the tour or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know. I just think it's. I would like to see them at like a being the headliner, and then see then get my full input on.
Like you want to see a full force SVDDEN Death or a full force UBUR show.
Exactly. Yeah. Then I can like get a better idea of what I think of their sets.
Right. No, I understand that. I also get why they turn it up for Snails, because Snails is the main show of the night. So everything's going to be the most hard during the Snails. I mean, that's why like I assume, like you said, it's like a huge big like LED veil screen or whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, I assume that not everybody had a ton of visuals, or not as many visuals as Snails.
So, yes. So the way that the visuals were for the openers is they had, a little table at the front of the stage, and then they used that front backdrop for, the holographic screen, I think is what Snails calls it, as their visual screen.
Yeah.
So it went, like, they had their little, their setup with the mixer, and then they had one deck on the right and then two decks on the other. And then went them, and then they used the backdrop for their visuals. And obviously, the visuals usually for the openers is just like a flashy, kind of like cool looking visual with their name, like their DJ name.
Right.
And
I like that, by the way.
Yeah.
I enjoy that.
So the main visual, I think, for UBUR was his name, and then I think it was like a face, like a head, like a cartoon head with like the top part of the head cut off where you could see inside the head and like the brain or something like that.
Okay.
And then that was the visual for UBUR, and then for Sudden Death or SVDDEN Death, whatever, it was
SVDDEN Death.
Yeah, okay. It was a skull and crossbones, and then it just had his name flashy, like being all flashy and stuff like that. And then Cookie Monsta's was pretty funny because it was all like clown masks. And
yeah, I've noticed he that's always his visuals. That was his visuals last time we saw him.
I really, because I couldn't really remember. Yeah, so like his visuals were clown mask, and another thing was funny is that he made flashy visuals of Marilyn Monroe, which I thought was pretty funny.
Really?
Yeah, like I don't know if he'll do it for you, because he'll be there for Orlando, but yeah, that's another thing. It was basically clown masks, his name being flashy, and then Marilyn Monroe is what I remember. I thought it was pretty funny.
Mm.
Okay, now before I want to talk about Snails, I want to talk about like their sets. So Uber had a great set. Sudden Death had a great set. And then kind of moving towards Cookie Monsta, there's a particular point I want to talk about in Cookie Monsta's set. Now, if you don't know who Cookie Monsta is, he's a British DJ, and he really likes to get crowd control. And again, being an opener, it's kind of hard to get crowd control because, in my opinion, the music is not as loud as it is for the opener. So for a headliner, I'm sorry. And so I have to give him props because he did a great job of trying to get energy for the crowd, trying to get some moshing going on, trying to, people putting their hands up and all that. But yeah, I have to give him props because he does a really good job at trying to get energy from the crowd. And so, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say 100% agree. I've only seen Cookie Monsta once, and this is not pet peeve, but this is an opinion I have. So you've seen him now opening for Snails. We've both seen him opening for Excision. Cookie Monsta should not be opening. He should be headlining. He should be headlining a show with like him and Funkcase and Dr. P or something, like a B2B show.
That needs to be like a B2B tour.
Cookie Monsta should not be opening. Like, he is a big-name dubstep artist. He should be headlining shows.
Now,
I have said that ever since we saw that Excision show, and that was early 2017. That's almost 2 years ago.
Right. Now, granted, on Cookie Monsta's part, he's not part of the whole entire tour, I think. It's just that he started doing shows, I think, like half a week ago or something like that. I think his first show was the one in Atlanta. I'm not sure about that, but which was like last week sometime. And so he just joined. So he's just now joined the tour. And I don't know how long he's going on. I know he's going on till or at least Orlando. But yeah, I have to give him props for trying to get the crowd going because he does a really good job. And I know being an opener, it's hard to get crowd control or crowd energy, but yeah, he did a really good set. And like I said, about like 20 minutes before his set was up, he played this one song where it had like just a long dragged bass note out, and right then and there when he played that song, you could really tell that they turned up the bass for him, which I absolutely liked. And so, kind of coming to the close of his set, he did a really good job. He was sweating all over. It was just really Cookie Monsta-like of him.
Yeah, he does a great job. He goes hard every time.
He really does. He's really crazy on stage.
I was so impressed when we saw him opening for Excision because he is headbanging and dancing hard every single song.
Mm-hmm. And
great hard dubstep set, at least that time that we saw him. And I assume that's how it was this time.
Yeah, all the way. So he had a great set. Now, so let's get to Snails. So, I think the set time that when Snails was going on was about 10:30. I know that seems early, but I think the venue was going to close at like midnight or whatever. So, so after Cookie Monsta went off, they had to have like a little break in order to disassemble the set in the front, and then have then set up Snails' set. So a lot of people. So the dance floor was really crowded. Where me and my friends were standing, And so like we got our traditional spot. We got the back middle, and
Nice.
If you ever go to a venue and you get the back middle on the dance floor, like that's the best part where you can get.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
And I mean, yes, here and there it can get crowded up sometimes, but at the point of when they were in the middle of the break where they disassembled the front set and then got ready for Snails' set, a lot of people just left to go go to the bar, go to the bathroom or whatever, and a lot of people left. And so at that time there was a ton of room, and I mean a ton of room, to where you could like move about and get a good spot for your Snails. And so me and my friends, we did that, and my goodness, I saw, you can see a stagehand flashing, like shaking a flashlight or whatever at the guy in the sound booth or whatever, and you just see the lights go down, and my goodness, right then and there, that they turned up the bass, and oh my goodness, Evan, when you get to House of Blues, Evan, I want you to get that spot. Because
that's exactly where I'll be standing.
Because
I'll be standing right in front of the sound booth.
Okay, so let me give you a clear mental picture of what it was, of what the sound went from Cookie Monsta to Snails. Okay, so Cookie Monsta, the most rumbling I felt in my body for bass was probably my heart.
In your butt.
No, yeah,
in your butt.
No, and I think the best I felt from Cookie Monsta's set was in my heart. Like I felt the bass like all the way through my heart or something like that.
Okay.
And so then they give like a 10-minute break, and then to get everybody's levels down, get their hearing normal, and then my goodness, they turned it up at least 5 times more for Snails. I don't know how many times they did.
Really, 5 times?
It honestly felt like that. As soon as the lights went down and Snails started his set, at least there was no downtime to where I could actually feel like the hairs on my arms moving. Do you remember Bassnectar from 2 years ago?
Oh yeah.
We could feel like it felt like a wind.
Yeah.
It was like that nonstop, Evan. It was like that nonstop.
I believe you. I mean, I assume I'm looking at his flyer that has the full set tour list, and it's advertised that he's using PK bass, which is the most bassy concert speakers you can use, I think.
That's what I was wondering, because I was trying to look at the speakers or whatever and see if it was PK, and I couldn't tell. But I think
it's PK.
So,
PK, at least from the research that I've done, PK releases the most clearest and purest bass sound.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. Yes. It's hard, but it's technically the purest, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay. So let's first talk about the set, and so how his set was. So because right now I'm going to school, and I don't have school on Monday. But my friends that I went with, they have work on Monday, so they kind of had it. So one of my friends said that he wanted to at least be out there before midnight. So luckily I've seen Snails before, so I was like, yeah, that's fine. I've seen Snails before. I just kind of wanted to go see the stage and experience the stage.
Right.
I think Snails was probably going to be on for about an hour 15, hour 20 minutes, and we only stayed for about 40 minutes of his set before we left. So of that 40 minutes, Evan, I have to say, because I don't remember. Okay, so trying to compare this set to Excision's set when we saw him at House of Blues, I would have to say. Now, I can't really remember how.
Don't you dare say it.
I don't remember how bassy it was, Evan, but this has to be the bassiest inside set that I've ever seen to date.
The bassiest.
The bassiest.
Like the most rumbly.
Yes, I have to agree. Now, I can't remember how much it was for Excision. Now, granted, for Excision, we weren't in the center middle. We were standing behind a stupid post on the, on like a little upper deck portion for the dance.
Yeah, the back. Yeah.
Now, again, that could have been. Now, if we were standing in the middle back of the dance floor when we went to go see Excision, I don't know. I can't remember if it would have been about the same. But Evan, my goodness, this has probably been the bassiest set to date of an inside venue. Excuse me, that I've been to.
Now you say bassiest.
Yes.
Does that necessarily mean loudest?
Nope, not at all.
So it's just the bassiest, the most rumbly.
This was not loud. This was all
really
super bassy. Yeah. So trust me. So okay. So think about downlink. If you
downlink was. Oh, I keep interrupting you, but just for the record, for the listeners, Downlink is probably, I would say, by far the loudest show we've ever been to.
And I agree with that, okay? And I say that Snails, for the inside venue, Downlink has been the loudest. For an inside venue, Snails has been the bassiest that I've been.
Bassiest? That's interesting, like... So you're saying it was not super, super loud, but it was super, super bassy.
So let me get to that. Okay. So again, I'm referring to downlink. So remember, in downlink, whenever I tried to talk into your ear, I had to scream. Okay, and even I couldn't hear myself scream in your ear.
Right.
That to me represents that it is super loud.
Right. I agree.
Okay. Now, when I went to go see Snails. Whenever the drop was happening, I could hear myself like talk normally like this. Like I can hear myself talk like this when I went to go see Snails.
Really?
But it was super bassy. Yes. So what considers to be loud is if I'm talking normally or if I'm trying to scream in your ear or whatever and I can't even hear myself talk, then that is loud. But yeah. So it wasn't loud at all. To compare, so you know how if you go to a very loud set and your ears ring, for like the next day or whatever, my ears barely even ring.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, this was not loud. It was just super, super bassy. And that right there, so that's how it was in my opinion. So this has been the bassiest set. Now, I kind of want to talk about Snails' visuals. Now, I won't talk about them much because I want you to, well, when you see them, you'll understand what I'm saying, okay? Mm-hmm. So, for those who don't know what Excision visuals are, it's basically, like, for the Paradox, basically. It's him controlling some kind of robotic, futuristic-looking machine, and it's firing lasers and doing some battle stuff, either on the screen or it's firing at you. You can look it up and go see what it is, okay?
Yeah, if you wanted to describe the Excision's The Paradox, it's basically every single visual is a very large robot or large creature that's very mad at the audience, very mad, and like usually shooting at the audience.
Yes. So what I'm wanting to get at is Excision's visuals are. Something is firing at the audience, okay? So you have the visuals are against the audience.
Yeah.
His visuals are it's a visual against a visual. So that's like the front holographic screen.
What?
It's always like a battle going on.
Really?
With like there was I don't want to get too specific in the visuals because I hope you'll see them. But it's like a snail guardian with like a spear fighting like a hydra worm or something like that. It was crazy. But there's always like a fight going on in the front part, and then like in the back it's like just random background visuals.
So it's like 3D.
Yeah. Well, it's not like it's coming out at you, but it's really cool to see a visual in front of Snails and then also see Snails, behind what's going on in the front. You'll know what I'm talking about.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about when you go see it. To date, I think this is the second best stage after the Paradox. Okay.
So it did not beat the Paradox in your.
No. And I'll tell you why. Okay. So So there's visuals. So visually, the screens were awesome. Now this is what kind of made it into second place than it did first place. First off, there were no lasers. Lasers, in my have to be part of visuals in order for it to compete with anything close to Excision, okay?
You are such a lasers fan.
Lasers are so cool. The way that like just like fat like can go fast and they can like spread into V-looking shapes or whatever. They are so cool. That's one thing that Excision the Paradox had, okay?
I hope, sorry to interrupt, but I hope Snails is listening to you, and he finds out that you put the shell behind the Paradox because the shell didn't have any laser.
Another thing is because the shell is nowhere near the size of the Paradox.
Oh, the Paradox is bigger?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, from the videos I've seen, it looked about the same, but I mean, I haven't seen it live, so.
Now, granted, the House of Blue stage is way bigger than the one at Iron City. So, like, the stage at Iron City, like, barely was big enough to hold the whole entire Shell 2.0 stage. Right. So, the stage at, like, you know, like, for reference, you know how the Paradox was in House of Blues? Like, that fit perfectly. The Shell 2.0 stage is, like, half the size of the Paradox, I would say.
Oh, really? Wow, okay.
Yeah. Visuals, okay. So, yeah, there were no lasers, which were a big downgrade for me. But, you know, the lights were great. There's flashy lights, obviously, which was all good and fun. But there were no lasers, which is a big deal for me. Second off, there was no CO2. Now, I don't know if for Iron City you can't, you know, stages can't have CO2 in that venue, but again, for the Paradox, he has CO2 that can come out, and plus the front of the stage raises up to where the CO2 can come out, which is really cool because even when, you know, because Excision has visuals that look like it's a face for the front of his stage to where it comes up and it's like opening its mouth, and then you see like the smoke or the CO2 come out, which is really cool.
Yeah, very, very cool. Very innovative.
Yes, yeah. Very, very. And again, there was no CO2 for Snails. Now, again, I don't know if you can have CO2 for the venue Iron City, but again, that's another thing. Now, I'm not all particular about fire in sets. Like I know it can be a hazard for inside venues, but for outside, it's sure. Go ahead. That's another good factor for outside venues. So yeah, those two factors right there is kind of why I put Snails Shell 2.0 stage in second place. It's because there weren't really lasers and there weren't CO2. There wasn't CO2. But having that all said, again, I think this is the bassiest inside venue show that I've been to date.
That is just so interesting to me. I just can't. I mean, I'll experience it here in a few weeks, but I just can't fathom something being not loud, but extremely bassy.
Right, and what I mean by not loud but bassy is you can hear yourself talk. Like if you're trying to shout or whatever, you can hear yourself talk.
Yeah, because the loud shows you can't.
Yeah, but I'm like saying but the bass is so bassy. You can it's like it feels like a wind, but there's like not really wind going. It's just your whole body is rumbling, and it feels like a wind on your body. But you can still, hear yourself talk or like moderately loudly talk. You know,
that is just that I just can't fathom that. But I guess I'll experience it here in a few weeks.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, by the way, I have the same lineup as you here in Orlando, except instead of UBUR, I get to see Heckler.
Yeah. I do kind of want to see Heckler again. Unfortunately, he's not. He's going to be an opener, and he's not headlining.
Well, yeah, but yeah. I mean, that's fine. Just to get to hear his set again. Because he's got that... There's almost like a new... I don't want to say a new trap genre, but it's like in the EDM and bass music, you start to get families.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a circus family. Funk Case, Dr. P, Cookie Monsta, maybe even Flux Pavilion would be considered in that family.
Yeah, Flux Pavilion is circus.
And then you've got I'm trying to think of another one. I mean, there's tons of them. Do what?
You mean record labels?
I guess you could kind of put it with record labels, like,
Disciple?
yeah, like this is Disciple the one that's got like Trampa and
No, so Disciple is mainly Barely Alive, Virtual Riot.
Barely Alive, Virtual Riot,
Eliminate, Panda Eyes, Ulasile.
Yeah, all those. Like they're a family. I feel like there's a hard trap family that consists of Heckler, Tynan,
Okay.
G-Rex.
I know what you're talking. Well, G-Rex is not really. I don't think.
What? Why not?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about releasing off of a label, G-Rex doesn't really release off of Never Say Die.
I'm not necessarily saying labels. I'm saying families.
Okay.
Like the hard trap family consists of Tynan, G-Rex.
Okay. Yes.
Well, this is a family. This is not the only hard trap family. This is a hard trap family.
Right.
Tynan, G-Rex, Heckler. There's a couple other people I can't think of their names right now, but yeah, I feel like there's little families, and I feel like that's one family. The Tynan, Heckler, G-Rex. I think Slews, is that one? I don't know, but anyways, yeah, I feel like they're they're a family, and I really want to see Tynan because Tynan has done so much recently.
Yes, I also want to see Tynan. His EP's coming out too.
Yes, he used to be called, or his name used to be spelled Tynvn, and I think now
really?
he's changed it to Tynan. Yeah.
I think I do remember that.
Yeah, it used to look like Tynvn, but it was still pronounced Tynan.
But A instead of V.
Well, Sudden Death is grammatically pronounced Sudden Death. So
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sudden Death. Oh yes, Sudden Death. And then suddenly, I heard a Sudden Death song. Sudden Death's got a lot of good music as well. The only thing about this, I have not heard any of UBUR's music, unfortunately.
I think I have some of his songs on my SoundCloud. I'm not sure though.
I assume he's dubstep, or she.
Yeah.
Is it he or she?
It's a guy. It's a guy. Yeah, I think I mean, I know I've heard of UBUR before, but.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. I just haven't heard any of his songs.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I do have some Sudden Death songs. Yeah, I got a couple Sudden Death songs on my SoundCloud that is released off of Never Say Die.
Right.
But yeah, Sudden Death his set was really good.
Okay, so let's play a small game here. So
Okay.
You now know what this concert was like, right?
Right.
Let's say that this concert is in town again with all these same people on that same stage. Would you see that again, or would you see the Paradox? Like, you've now seen both the Shell and the Paradox. So which one, if they were both in town on the same day, which one would you go see?
Both in town on the same day.
Let me throw something else in there.
Okay.
So for the Snails show, it's UBUR, Sudden Death, and Cookie Monsta again. But for the Excision show, it's 3 locals that you've never heard of. Which one are you going to go see? And you have to see. You can't just stay at home and sleep.
And sleep.
I am forcing you to go to one of these shows.
Okay. To be quite honest with you, and in that situation, I would probably go see the Paradox, because
that answers it. Then the Paradox is clearly better.
Well, visually, yes, but if you're talking about the overall picture of what you're asking, it's because I would like to see, local people and see what their kind of music is and like how they're starting. Because we're also, trying to start out, via this podcast, and I know we've released some music, which is
it's doing great.
It's it's doing all right.
Please listen to our music.
So, but yeah, it's just being locally from Alabama, it would be nice to hear what other locals, hopefully from Alabama, what they're trying to go for as a unique sound or whatever. But again, now that I have a clear picture of what Snails' 2.0 show is like, I would like to re-see the Paradox and get, in the right spot, and then have Excision's team, work how they usually do for the Paradox.
Right.
So I would probably have to pick the Paradox in that situation.
So, okay, so let me ask you this. Which is a better show? Which is a better show? Snails or Rez?
You mean as in like an inside or outside venue, or
as far as what you've seen of both of those two artists, which show is better?
Oh, I would definitely say Snails.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Now, granted, I've only seen Rez in an outside venue, main stage, in the middle of the day, to where it's not her full capacity of headlining a show.
That is true.
Snails, I have seen as a headliner, and I've seen his own stage with his own visuals, and where the bass has literally been turned up for him, and I haven't seen Rez as a headliner at all. So I definitely have to go with Snails in this case because of that reason.
Just because because of what you've seen. But
yes.
Like if Snails and Rez were in town on the same day, who would you go see?
And Rez was headlining?
Yeah.
Then I would go see Rez.
Okay.
Because I want to see her headline her own show and get that full experience.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
And then try to compare it to, Snails' show.
Yeah. Maybe that's not a fair question to ask, just because you just saw Snails and it was awesome, and like we've only seen Rez once, and it was like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which was dumb.
Yeah. But again, we can still say that we've seen Rez, and yet her set on main stage was awesome, but it wasn't the full potential Rez.
Right.
Which was kind of unfortunate because, she's really grown ever since we've seen her at EDC. She's actually her own headliner show at Red Rocks, which I would have died to go see, but,
right.
Being from Alabama and Colorado is all the way across the United States. Unfortunate, though.
Right. Okay, last thing. So rate them 1 to 4. Snails, Cookie Monsta, SVDDEN DEATH, and UBUR in order of your favorite set. Meaning take the visuals out only based on the music they played.
Based on the music? Okay. So I think it's already been predetermined by how I've been talking about it. So I think, so is 1 to 4 like 1 being the best and 4 being the worst, or 4 being the best and 1 being the worst?
Yeah, 1 to 4, 1 is the best, 4 is not the worst sounds so bad, but 4 is like, yeah, the worst, because for lack of a better word.
Okay.
But do 4 to 1 though.
Okay, so 4. Well, I think it would just have to be in order. So I think it would go 4 would be UBUR, 3 would be SVDDEN DEATH, 2 would be Cookie Monsta, and 1 would be Snails. So they, well, not necessarily UBUR and SVDDEN DEATH, but Cookie Monsta did play a couple songs that I've been actually wanting to listen to live. And then Snails also played some songs that I was really wanting to hear live. UBUR and SVDDEN DEATH, they played, some songs and remixes of, and they played, remixes of songs that I did know. I think one was Throwing Elbows remix. I think it's SVDDEN DEATH played that. Anyway, but I think I've showed you this song, but I think earlier in the fall, Elenium so last year Illenium had an album, and then this year he released a remix album. And one of the main dubstep songs from that was remixed by Company, and Company did a remix for Free Fall. And I really like Company's remix of Free Fall. Free Fall. And Cookie Monsta played it, and then Snails played it when they turned it up, and my goodness, it was awesome. And I was really happy and excited about that. And then, of course, Snails played, some of his songs from his recent album and past songs that he's made, and that was just really cool. And again, I kind of wanted to hear, I did want to hear Snails and his collab with Nightmare, but I've heard it. I've heard it before at EDC night when we went to go see Nightmare at EDC last year. Nightmare played it, but we left, and we left. Midway through his set, and I don't know if he played it during his set, but it didn't really matter to me because I've already seen that song live. But it would have been cool to see it again, but it was whatever. But yeah, just a couple of songs that I really wanted to see live, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it is criminal that Cookie Monsta is still opening up for other DJs. Like, he should have his own show. I'm gonna just keep saying that until he gets his own show. He should be a headliner. One last question.
Mm-hmm.
How was the crowd? Was there any weirdos in the crowd?
So, your normal typical, bass crowd, you have your glove guy. You have
the glove guys.
Yeah. You have your glove guy. I saw one glove guy. Obviously, I saw one Bass Mentor shirt. I was surprised at the variety of DJ merch that people were wearing. I saw a lot of Snails, obviously.
Right. I
saw some Excision shirts. I saw a Riot 10 shirt, which was kind of
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I saw a Black Label Society. If you don't know what Black Label Society is, it's like a album released from Never Say Die, which is a record label, and it has a bunch of either already well-known artists or a bunch of upcoming artists, and they just have singles that they place on this album. Just have one big album of a bunch of singles. So yeah, that's all for that.
So then maybe Birmingham has a nice little collection of EDM fans.
Maybe they do. Maybe some are from some are from Mississippi or some from South Alabama or whatever.
Yeah, Mississippi never gets any EDM shows. I'll just say that right now, because we have a website that we always check. By the way, and this is not a promoted plug or anything. This is just an awesome website plug. If you don't know how to find music in your area, go to a website called edmtrain.com. Best website to find EDM shows in your area. That's the one that's the one I use. I think you use it.
Yeah, I use that too.
That's the best one by far. You can Google EDM shows in my area, and it'll take you to these websites that are for bands playing in my area. No, just go to edmtrain.com. Best website for finding EDM shows in your area.
Yeah, and they also have an app. So if you have App Store for Apple or whatever, they also have it on the App Store, and it's very, very handy. Too. And if you're interested in a show, you can favorite a show, and then you can also, get your ticket via a link that you click on from that specific show that you're wanting to look for, and they'll give you an event website or whatever. And yeah, it's really, 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 really handy and very, very cool to have. And yeah, but the both of us use that. But yeah.
Well, very good, very good. All right. Anything else on the Shell 2.0?
No, but do you have any more questions for me that you would like to know?
I mean, do you want me to ask another question?
If you have one, yeah.
So, how was the parking?
What?
Did you have to pay to park?
So, I don't know. So where we parked,
how do you not know? Did you black out before the show?
Okay, so where we parked, so the venue is on a one-way street with 3 lanes or whatever, and so how on on one side of the street you can have parallel parking, and for the parallel parking there's like, parking meters or whatever. So with it being on the weekend, I don't think you usually have to pay for parking in a parallel parking spot in downtown Birmingham when it's on the weekend.
Okay, yeah.
We didn't know though, because we did see like one of the sides of the parking meter was like blinking or whatever. So we didn't know, but yeah, when we just like totally didn't do anything about it, and so we just went on to the venue, and then when we got out, there was no ticket, so we were fine. So I'm assuming it was okay.
That's interesting though. I think here in Orlando it's the same, where parking is either free or cheaper on the weekends, I want to say. I think that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong with that though.
Right. Okay.
Excellent parking story, Alex. Excellent.
Yeah, very.
So, do what?
Any other questions?
Not that I can think of. What did all the DJs go for an hour ish?
Yeah, it was about an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it usually goes. The reason I asked about parking is because I don't know why, but that's like slowly becoming a big it's slowly becoming a factor in if I will like the venue or not. Because, I realize that if it's a show downtown, usually you are going to have to pay for parking. In this case, you didn't, which is great. But, usually you're going to have to pay for parking. And the couple of venues in Orlando where you don't, I love those venues. That's why I love House of Blues, because it's free parking.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if... not that, if I have to pay for parking, I'm not going to go to a show or anything, but I'm just saying that's something that has, kind of always been a factor for me, I guess. Or has become a factor for me recently.
Right.
I guess I wanted to just kind of touch on a couple of things. So, on Spotify, I know you're not on Spotify, you're on SoundCloud only. I've started a playlist called Basscast Intros/Outros, which is basically just a playlist of all of our intros and outros from all our episodes. And it is it's an open playlist for anybody to listen to. And I'm going to continue to put in our intro and outro songs on that for anybody who's interested in that. Next episode, we will review EDC Orlando, as we're going to that. Well, okay, this episode will come out on Sunday, November 11th, which is technically after EDC Orlando, but we always record the week before. So we'll record our EDC Orlando review the week after EDC Orlando, and then that will come out the Sunday after that. So that'll be that review, and then we're going to keep doing reviews and episodes until, let me see, the new year, which will be January 6th or 13th, will be our last episode, and then we're going to take a break. Now, that last episode, we're going to do our favorite songs from 2018. We're going to do a top 20 list. I'm very excited about that episode. Very excited. I have an idea of how we're going to determine our top 20, and it's going to be a collective decision. It's not just going to be, what Alex thinks is the top 20 or what I think is the top 20. It's going to be a collective decision. It's going to be like a vote, like a voting type thing. But very excited about that episode. And then, anyways, like I said, we're going to do that episode. That'll be the last one, and then we're going to take a break until about April or so. Just so we can get caught up, because I actually do want to go back to working more on music instead of the podcast, and I'm working on collabing with a couple of friends from church, and I want to get that done and get that out and see what happens with that. So that's just kind of a quick look over the next couple of months, but yeah, I think that will do it for this episode. Y'all have a good rest of the night.
And your week, whenever you're listening to this. See y'all.
I'm trying to stay on higher ground before the feeling comes back.